how do you typically respond to life's challenges? Do you dive right in head on and grind it out, or you react it? In today's episode, we interview Julia Rugosa, who brings us through the journey that she had with mental illness and how she used mindfulness, meditation, and learning the chakra system to help heal herself and change her relationship to challenges. Hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to the Wellness Empowerment Project. I'm Trish.
And I'm Julie. We are two nurses exploring holistic healing and wellness practices to empower you to be the leader of your own health. Join us as we try out new things, or as we call it, weird shit, and have some fun along the way.
Today, we're meeting with Miss Julia Rugo. Yoga, self-expression, and energy healing, as well as sound, has been a huge foundational aspect of Julia's life. As this regimen helped her recover from a variety of mental illnesses, Julia is passionate about helping others find fulfillment and passion within themselves, which will ripple and make an impact into their relationships, community, work, life, and the planet. Welcome, Julia.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Hi, Julia. It's nice to meet you.
So great to meet you too.
Julia, I'd love to hear, you spoke about how you recovered from a variety of mental illnesses. Can you give us a little backstory of what was going on and how you worked yourself through?
Yeah, definitely. So recently I've had an interesting experience where I saw the root of my mental illnesses. It was the solar eclipse and a new moon about 2 weeks ago, and I was visiting my sister. I'm very into energy. I'm very into understanding how the planets align and the moon phases up with our energy and affects the tides that we can literally see. Our own energy is very much affected by the moon, which is a huge mass that's affecting our gravity, and then the planets of our solar system that extend from the sun. All of these things are great masses of energy that therefore have an effect on us. And jumping a little into the physics of that and the way I also look at the chakra system is connected to our emotional states and our psychological states. This is also true with the planets and the moon and the themes of these masses, these huge masses of energy or literal physical matter that have an energy and connect to our psyche and our self being here on planet Earth. I had this big thing happen where I have been recovered from my mental illnesses. I've been off pharmaceutical medication for at least 7 years now. There are ebbs and flows within that. I have a tendency to lean towards depression. And that's just a part of me. And that's okay because that's being human, noticing the full spectrum of life and being in the full spectrum of life. But essentially, on this day of the solar eclipse and this big new moon happening, I fell all the way back to where I used to be, essentially in high school at the height of my bipolar depression. I felt like I could just see everything very clearly. It was with my parents. I was in my own habits that I had learned from them and that I had used to cope with them. It was very much this, oh, I don't feel the ability to express myself. And I'm in so much pain mentally. I'm in so much challenge right now. It hurts so badly. And I don't know how to ask for help and be seen within that help and not blame the people around me also. This was a big culmination of effects where this day, 2 weeks ago, I saw all of this and I chose to react differently because I could see it now from this elevated perspective where I haven't been in it for almost a decade at this point. But that's where it came from. So that's why self expression is so important to me and energy is very important to me also because it leads us down the elves and this relationship to challenge, which is what we're speaking about today, is the choice to see through that, see why you're having this experience now and in the case of me that day, I was able to reevaluate a little bit, meaning, oh, wow, I've come really far. This is really hard. It does not feel good. It does not feel good. And I had forgotten it was even that bad because it's been a decade of feeling better and being able to help people, other people that have depression or anxiety, and just the gravity that is there where you do need to lay in bed all day or just choose to read your book or something else to cope and to handle these big emotions and feelings that are happening inside of you.
Your initial challenges in your life were with bipolar depression. And this time, when you fell back into that same space, you responded differently. Can you take us back to earlier on in your life? What are the ways that you would initially respond to a day just like you had a couple of weeks ago? And can you tell us how you responded differently this time?
Yeah, great question. I noticed it mostly with my sister and how I would be reactive to her in the past. I would be not seeing the situation that I was in as clearly as I did at this point in time. And so I would be upset with her that she wasn't checking on me or that she wasn't aware of how much depression I was in. I would say something snarky to her if she came in the room or if she's like, "Hey, are you ready for dinner?" I would say something mean just to bring someone back to my level. And the truth is, I was not communicating with her directly. Hey, I'm feeling really depressed right now. I need you to check on me. I want you to come in the room. Instead, I'm shutting the door without any words. So it's okay, stay away from her. All right, she's going to do her thing. She's going to process. I am someone that needs a lot of space to process. So if I'm not communicating, hey, I need some extra care today, I would actually love if you knocked on the door. That would be good for me. But that's how you can react differently now is start that communication process. Notice that no one knows what you're thinking or feeling. And a lot of times you closing the door or going downstairs or leaving the space is without communication of one, please don't follow me. I need some space. Or two, I would love for you to check on me in a half an hour, whatever it might be. Three, I'd love a snack in a half an hour, something like that, where whatever you need for care and to have the people around you care for you too, you have to let them know that. That was the biggest notice for me was actually choosing to communicate that. And I will say at first I did not communicate that. I was upset that she wasn't checking on me, but I had given her the body language and physical symbol of a shut door with no communication, which means stay out of here in normal body language way. So that was the shift I made. And then when I was in there feeling upset and sorry for myself and wishing someone would check on me, I noticed it was up to me to ask for that check and let myself receive it.
Julia, maybe it is the moon and the eclipse. However, I very much relate to everything you just spoke about. I had an event occur about a week ago. And one of the big things I recognized with my history of anxiety is how I reacted so differently than how I did in the past. And one of the first things I did was start to ask for what I needed, as well as allow myself to feel the feelings. Two things I historically wouldn't do in the past. I wouldn't release the feelings, I would hold it in, which would just exacerbate the anxiety, which would essentially cause more of an external reaction because I was unable to process those emotions. When you have that going on, you're not in that state where you can start to truly ask for what you need and come from a more balanced state. So, with this awareness, what have you done the last 7 years that brought you from the point where you were in this, you could say, reactive state and in this bipolar and depression? What have you done that's gotten you to the point where not only have you moved off of a lot of the medications, also have brought this awareness into your life?
Mindfulness meditation is where it all began. There are so many different types of meditation, and I encourage everyone to explore all the types. Maybe mindfulness isn't the right one for you. I found it was the one that could bring me to this greater level of awareness within my emotions, within my physical body, within my breath. And by becoming that mindful of just practicing mindfulness for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever your meditation length may be. That's what I always encourage students to do too. Is just start small and try it all. A lot of people have hard times. That's actually the point too. You're not supposed to just be able to sit down and meditate really easy. It's about noticing the thoughts and then coming back to your breath every single time. So mindfulness paired with yoga, asana, the physical postures of yoga is what initially brought me to come into my body and start to observe my thoughts and feelings more than be in my thoughts and feelings. That's the difference between reactiveness, being in your thoughts and feelings, and responsiveness, which is observing your thoughts and feelings, seeing and allowing them to be valid, but choosing to respond in a way that nurtures your relationship or nurtures your self care, whatever it might be. Alongside that, through the mindfulness, yoga, and chakra work is also what happens. It all came to me at the same time. And I started to very quickly understand the chakra system and how that was relating to my physical well being, my emotional well being, my mental being, and practicing that within both the mindfulness meditation and asana yoga. I started to feel, oh, my solar plexus, for example, which is your center of confidence and fire, was really low. I didn't have much confidence in myself. I That fed me having depression and anxiety because I didn't believe I had a seat at the table or that anyone would want to listen to me or support me in the way that I needed. So, by just noticing and getting to know that center, energy center, and then choosing to sit in meditation and do asana in ways that enhance the solar plexus chakra, for example, then I was able to draw more energy into that space within me and then began to shift my outward responses.
How were you able to recognize specifically the solar plexus was your area that needed more work?
This is a really good question because there are a few ways that I actually figured it out, and it's funny. One of them is that core work, such as sit ups, were always really hard for me. I could not do a sit up. When we had to do those physical education tests in gym class, there would be a standard that you had to do 10 push-ups or 10 crunches and did it in this order. And people held your feet down and you had to lift yourself up. I couldn't do that. I literally could not do the crunch portion. And that relates very much to your solar plexus. Your solar plexus is the thing that's lifting you up, that is your crunch center. The physical strength of that portion of my body was lesser than other parts of my body. Also, just literally a Google search of the chakra system. For me, my beginning of healing journey began with this book called The Little Book of Yoga. It's actually right next to me and it's by Chronicle Books. There isn't even a exact author, probably a collaboration, but it runs through the chakras, the asana postures, the eight limb path, the philosophy of yoga. And that with a Jack Cornfield mindfulness meditation for beginners book is where I just started. As I looked up the chakras and began to research a little bit about it, it was obvious in the sense of the solar plexus quells a lot of anxiety. It also is responsible for your confidence. It is that center that is your power center. So your powerhouse where you can make decisions easily. Your imbalance is indecisiveness. And so by learning about the traits of that, it just becomes really obvious like, all right, this is where I am. This is what's lacking in me. Okay, so I think I should start with the solar plexus, or that's where the largest imbalance is right now.
It's interesting. Were you really interested in the chakra system before you started with this, or was there something that led you to start exploring in this area?
So I wasn't necessarily super interested in it. I didn't really know about it. I went to a few gym yoga classes over the years, but the diagnosis of bipolar happened when I was probably 18, and my healing journey really began at 22 or 23. That was when the other part of bipolar showed up, which was mania. So I had a full blown manic episode. And again, being the relationship with challenge, it felt like my purpose dropping in. I immediately just started to understand the chakra system. I came to my own awareness that I was in this very long manic episode. It lasted almost 8 months. At that time, I was seeing a lot of spiritual signs. I was staying up for a long portion of time and barely sleeping at all. The way I understood it at that time, and still do, is it felt like my crown chakra had just burst open. So your crown chakra is the energy center that connects you with the universe and your higher self and your angels, your spirit team. It brings purpose to your life, essentially. The point is to funnel that purpose into your body and use the rest of your chakra system to move your purpose forward in the world and your work forward in the world. It's almost like it just downloaded at that time. All of a sudden, I knew about the chakra system, and the solar plexus stuff really came probably several months after understanding that I was manic and changing my medicine to reflect a manic episode and taking care of this real bipolar that had shown up. It tracked with me intellectually because I was studying frequency engineering, and our chakra system is our frequency system, essentially our body's frequency system that holds the emotional codes of us, the physical codes of us, and the spiritual codes of us within these wheels of energy that run from the base of the spine to the top of the head in our physical, actual bodies. There are 7 of them. And so it tracked intellectually in that sense, where that actually made sense too. Okay, I went to school for digital signal processing. I was still studying that, having a very hard time in the traditional school system with it. Now I have this chakra system and I understand how the waves of my solar plexus might be more decreased than at this time my crown chakra, just huge. The different amplifications and ways that they are showing up in my overall frequency. I hadn't known about them before, and it wasn't really a conscious choice to find them, but it just came to me. You could say however you want, really, whether it's the coincidence of the little book of yoga teaching me about chakras or my spirit team coming in and being like, hey, this is your crown chakra. Your solar plexus needs some work. Your root chakra needs some work. All of those sorts of things. It's really however the person wants to interpret it. Trusting your own self to interpret that, what you're receiving and what you're learning about for your own way and being.
So, when you have a client that starts to work with you, what are some of the ways that you start to help that person explore how they're responding to different challenges within their life?
Yeah, so people tend to come to me when they are lacking confidence and security, when they are a little more reactive than responsive, specifically in their relationship. I always start with a chakra assessment and discussing the chakras with them. When we're working one on one, we're getting really deep into the root of it right away and getting to know the chakra system individually for them through this decade of chakra work and experience and directly working with it myself. I've gotten to really know the nuances of your system, your chakra system, and what might be hidden behind the 5 traits you get on a Google search or whatnot. But we always start with the base of the chakra system. And normally that honestly just begins with a Reiki session, coming back to filling yourself up and balancing your energy out, because energy is never created or destroyed. That's physics. And your energy is in your body somewhere. It's just maybe too much in your heart space, for example. You're needing to bring it down into your root to feel a little more that would actually be a very common thing with this reactivity versus responsiveness. Maybe you're over giving from your heart space and not asking for things. So that's extra heart space, so much heart space. Versus a more balanced heart space, you're able to bring your choice of asking for help through your solar plexus, the idea of just feeling secure and safe to ask for that help or receive something through your root chakra. So, all the energy that you have is meant to be with you, and it's teaching you a lesson for your soul's purpose or for your life's purpose or whatever it might be to okay, I'm not going to people please anymore. I'm actually going to create a boundary and feel secure in myself to ask for that. That can encompass a lot of different ways of work, but all my work really does stem around the chakra system and coming to mindfulness and yoga and philosophy and whatnot to live by an ethics code and choose to really love yourself and those that are around you.
What really resonated, Julia, is when you were speaking about the root chakra in particular. The root chakra is safety and security, and how much that aligns with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because that's the base as well: security, safety. If we don't have that strong base, we're truly not able to, say, move up the ladder. But at the same way, if you don't have that strong base, how can you have movement with your passion? I'm just using that as an example because we've talked a lot about that third chakra as well. I just thought that was pretty fascinating because you talked a lot about the roots and safety and security, how it relates, I think, to other structures that we have, but also relates to you finding your root cause and what was the base and the root cause of your own internal challenge and struggle. You had to find that with your physical self and align it with your energetic self in order to change it with the world that you're currently living in.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the way you mentioned that alignment portion too, because that's exactly it. It's coming into alignment where, again, if we think in frequency, we can imagine different waves or even the ocean where there's choppy water. There's waves here, and then there's some waves over here, and there's a swell over there, and it's not cohesive. It's not really coming into alignment. And then there's days where okay, all of these waves are starting to sync up and you have a steady rhythm. And again, welcoming human life just as nature is, there's days where you're choppy and part of you is a little not in sync with the other wave. But coming to this baseline of steadiness where the waves are working together, you're leaning and coming towards alignment that is that's the process and the welcoming of your physical body with your emotional and your spiritual body to sync up, coming to this steady state, whether this is the bigger life purpose or simply just feeling good, feeling happy, feeling peaceful, or feeling seen in your relationship. Those are all awesome purposes. It doesn't have to be like earth shattering purpose. Purpose can be as simple as feeling peace and contentment during this day and feeling happy in your home life. That's a beautiful purpose as well. All of that stuff can reach together to become the steady state. I've been talking a lot about steady state lately in my group course, Radiant Self, which Radiant Self is literally what I learned through this process of coming out of my system and engages your security and your confidence and your choice of loving yourself in a balanced way. We are all just working towards getting to this steady state and creating this steady state and becoming aware of when we're higher than it or lower than it. What can we do to sort of balance and welcome and get to know our own flaws? Flaws doesn't necessarily seem like the right word, but just the true parts of us that show up most consistently, how you want to look at that. Do you want to look at that as a negative trait or something that is inherent to you and good about you? How can you shift that perspective to feel more contentment about yourself and within yourself, which then leads to the steady state a little more each time?
I just really wanted to add, I love that you use the water as a great analogy because what I see you speaking on is not just the attainments of getting to this steady state, but also the ability then to navigate those choppy waters.
Yes.
They're going to happen.
Yes.
We can't avoid it. It will,
Yes.
something's going to come and the wind's going to blow, something's going to fall down and we're going to have turmoil. It sounds like you're really helping to bring others into this empowered state where not only have you gotten yourself into a steady state, but then now you know how to bring yourself out of the choppy waters in a more healthy, balanced manner, which ultimately, at least I think, when we are navigating these challenges, we want to be able to come to them in a very clear mind. We don't want our bodies to be all out of sort when we're dealing with it. Because I think that's the hardest part, at least for me, when you have a challenge come up. Originally, it was how my body would get so out of sort at that time. So, Julia, this would lead me to the question, if someone's already achieved the steady state and they have these rough waters, what are maybe the first three steps that they should take?
Beautiful. So this is full circle to the start of the conversation in how I initially became so imbalanced. If you are in your steady state, but something happens because it's human life, seeing those waters and being in challenge of it is just accepting the challenge, accepting and going with the emotion as if it's the current that you are now in. If we're still speaking of the ocean and waters, you've got a rough storm coming up and here it is, and okay, all you can do is ride the wave, let it take you to the next shore by acknowledging your emotion, allowing yourself to feel it, letting it be expressed in a safe manner. And that is a question that you can ask the people around you, or you can enter a support group or something where there is a safe space to express that, as well as just creating a safe space for yourself to express that. So that would be it. It would be accepting, letting yourself express it, noticing, okay, this makes me feel a lot better just by accepting it and then expressing it. That's the one step. Two step, you will feel like you're able to make a move forward. Then I welcome your intuition as the third step. You know what you need to do for yourself after that. If it was a really big emotion that you just accepted and processed, then for me, I need a blanket. I need to watch a movie. I need to sleep for a while. Trust your intuition on what you're led to do next. If anxiety is still present for you, maybe you need to go on a walk or do a movement practice. Maybe you need to reflect and meditate. Again, if you know your steady state and you've been doing this work and you are aware of wellness and you have empowerment within you, you're going to know the tools in your toolbox and you're going to know which one's the next step, the next right thing for you to do.
What about the people who don't know, that don't have that awareness, that they're really just starting this type of work? I know for myself, when I start to meet certain challenges, either professionally or personally, I have almost like an emotional habit of how I react and respond to things. I could see those emotional responses feeling that's my intuition telling me to move in this direction. But that's not necessarily the right thing or the healthy step for me. For someone who may not have or may not be as in touch with that aspect of themselves, how can they differentiate between their like embedded emotional response to things to a more intuitive state?
Beautiful. So again, awareness. Maybe yours would be to journal about it and catch what you want to do next. So if your emotional response, or I guess reaction more so in this sense, is to keep working harder.
The big one for me. Just grind through it. And I think that is for a lot of women. Just
Yeah,
grind away, keep going, work harder. You'll figure it out if you work harder.
absolutely. Yeah. So do the opposite. Let yourself rest. Or if you really feel like you need to work, then do a different kind of work, meaning that might be journaling yet again, or going to a yoga class, carving out a moment of time for you that feels, if you still need it, that feels productive. Let it be a productive thing, but it's not where you're dwelling on your problem or working harder in your job or whatever it might be. It's taking a step back to come into yourself because that is work in itself also.
Yeah. What I'm hearing you say for this is what my takeaway is anyway. When I'm not necessarily in the heat of a challenge or responding to something that I'm going to have to work at, that's the time for me to start that work of, okay, how have I actually responded to different challenges in my life in the past? And did that actually work for me or did it not? That journaling piece of really looking and reflecting at different things that have happened in my life and how I responded to them. Then when I'm actually in the midst of a challenge, I have something that I can look back to and make a decision. Do I do what I normally do or is it time to do something different and maybe do the exact opposite? Am I tracking right?
Yes, absolutely. Those past experiences are going to guide you if you let reflecting on them and letting them guide you, let them be real pieces of evidence that have taught you something that you can grow a new relationship with. You can grow a new relationship through this current challenge or this spot in your life.
So, Julia, only because we haven't talked a lot about this, but I definitely see this connection where number three was your intuition and trusting yourself. That's one of the most important pieces because if you're not to the point where you're able to easily recognize and move through and you're at the beginning, but you have started to recognize that you are in these habitual reactions, I see creating that separation is so important because you're now starting to take steps that show that you're trusting yourself. That's the one thing that I think is what happens is that when we're in these reactionary phases, when we have a habit, and the habit is our emotional response to a situation that's very much embedded into us, it almost shows I don't trust myself. I just need to react so I can move through this, whether it's moving through avoidance, and the avoidance can be removing yourself, just grinding hard, because that's the only way how to get through a big anger emotion. What I really see is that these steps of the recognizing and the separation really are these small ways that we're starting to develop our own personal self trust. That's essentially what you're working on during these points of reflection. Because when you're journaling it down and putting it on paper, you're also saying that I'm trusting that these are the pieces that I'm putting together and they are valid. My experiences are valid. My experiences are true. No matter what anyone else says, this is my truth and what it feels like to me. So we built that up. Then when you have those waves come in, your first two steps, you said acceptance and expression, is really I've recognized this. I'm going to move through this emotion so I can get back to the state where I can trust myself and use my intuition to move forward. Is that one of the big pieces that you think is part of your work?
Definitely. And a really important part of the intuition part is to not overthink it. We tend to imagine potentially that intuition is this big thing. It's a very spiritual, it's a very in touch, in tune word. But the truth is, every single person has intuition and every single person is following it at some point in time. Even by catching, say you don't think of yourself as you're new to this work. You don't have your steady state yet. But you are noticing that you need to react differently or you need to respond differently. That in itself is the build of self trust and intuition, just as you're saying, Trish. It's exactly that. The intuition piece doesn't need to be thought of as I don't have that, or I'm not spiritual enough, or I haven't practiced enough yoga, or I don't meditate, so I don't have intuition. Your intuition is also just your way of being. You know when to drink a glass of water, even. It's little tiny things like that that are your intuition. And it's very body based, it's very connected to your body. So you do know how to take care of yourself and you don't need to overthink it.
What are some of the body signals that a person can tune into that really showcases, okay, this is my intuition and I should be paying more attention to this?
So, gut reaction has been a big one for me, especially in the development of my intuition as I've grown deeper into this work. My intuition was always present, but again, I didn't recognize it as intuition. I didn't know that's what it was. And then as you start to practice and you become aware of meditation and you start to know what a high feels like and what a low feels like and what a steady state might feel like, gut reactions are your initial connection to your body-based intuition. And that might just be like, oh, this situation doesn't feel good to me. Or I'm not going to walk down that dark alley. Those simple things. You might think they're logical, but they're actually connected to your gut. There's a gut heart brain connection. And your gut knows, oh, this isn't right. This isn't good. This isn't the place I want to walk myself. Your gut is leading you in so many scenarios, which is your body leading you. And that is your intuition. With the drinking water, for example, you just become thirsty. That is a body signal. And so it can become like that. There are times when I feel like I really need to do yoga right now. Oh, I really need yin yoga right now, or I really need vinyasa class right now. That's your intuition also. It's your body feeling like, oh, I haven't had enough of this lately, and this would balance me out. It's not even a conscious thought entirely until it becomes conscious, and you're like, okay, I'm going to roll out my yoga mat and I'm going to do this sun salutation. Trusting that comes back to self trust, trusting your body and trusting just what you want to do in a sense. I think intuition a lot is connected to what we want to do, what would feel good for us to do. That is your intuition being like, okay, this is how you're going to feel better. This is how you're going to get closer to your steady state with self awareness. So, you know, if you are doing too many things that are just on the high end of happiness, or if you're further in the depressive zone, maybe you want to just keep sleeping, you want to keep sleeping. That's when your self awareness comes in and you're like, okay, I have slept a lot. So, what can I do? I can go on a walk outside. Now that's when you do the opposite thing. In a sense, there's a fine line between your intuition and your choices, essentially, because if you are depressed, you know you're depressed, and it would feel really good to stay in bed and sleep. But you've done that for maybe you slept in 2 days in a row, a lot. Then it's okay. Let me try something else and see how that makes me feel. Noticing just the frequency of what you're doing, whether that's the frequency of doing really fun things all the time, or you're in the opposite spectrum of feeling a little depressed and maybe you need more rest. Maybe you've been working really hard and therefore, yeah, you do need a lot of rest. But there's also times where it's the finesse, the balance of knowing yourself and what you've been doing a lot of and whether it's truly making you feel good or if it's been a little too much, it's on the too much.
Julia, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you today. One of the biggest takeaways that you spoke of, especially when we're talking about trying to build that self trust, is to take action. When we're in those times of calmer waters, and we're starting to really take note of what's going on. Take note of those little ways that your body is speaking with. Listen to your gut. And when you hear it, start to take that action. Because once you start taking those actions, we're going to be building that trust within us. So when we get to those choppy waters, we can have our own confidence and security. Start taking those aligned next steps. Julia, if someone wants to find you, how can they reach out and connect?
best way to reach me is through Instagram or my website. Both are Julia Rugosa. The website just has .com on the end of it. Signing up for my email list or sending me a message, you will be able to find my programs and offerings. I run Radiant Self, which is the foundational course of working towards this next level of security, confidence, and understanding your chakra system and what it's telling and teaching you. I run that seasonally. I run that in the fall, winter, and spring. That's a really great place to step into my work and get to know in a small, intimate, and supportive setting about your chakra system and how to practice mindfulness or other types of meditation that will enhance your well-being and the self-trust that we've been talking about.
We will make sure that we put your Instagram and your website into the show notes so our listeners can easily find you and connect with you.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So great to talk with you.
Thanks for joining. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow, subscribe, and share with a friend. Want to learn more about a specific topic? Drop us a line on our website and we can explore it deeper with you.